When I say the words Invicta watches, what's the first image that comes to your mind? Maybe this, or even this. But what about this one? Well, this is what we're going to be looking at today. So stick around and we'll dive in to this watch. Hello and welcome to Infinite Chronos. So today we're going to be taking a look at the Invicta Pro Diver model number 31290, or as it is more commonly known as the Invicta 1953. So a little bit of history about the Invicta Watch Corporation. So the corporation was actually established in 1837 in Switzerland. So it has some real watchmaking roots. But unfortunately, when the quartz crisis hit, Invicta was not immune and went bankrupt in 1980 and was sold in 1983 and then again in 1991, this time to an American corporation which moved its headquarters to Hollywood, Florida, where it resides today. So, as you know, Invicta typically makes homage watches and some, well, rather extravagant ones, but hey, that's great. But I would say if you are in the market and are looking for a Rolex Submariner Homage with a real vintage feel, and you want something that's under $150, well, I really encourage you to take a look at their model 31290. Let's check it out. And here is the Invicta Pro Diver reference number 31290, also known as the Invicta 1953. So some quick specs about this watch. This is a 40 millimeter case size. It is 49 millimeters lug to lug, and it is a 20 millimeter lug width right here. So you can fit this with quite a few different strap models and so forth. It is 14 millimeters thick, and a lot of that is due, I wouldn't say a lot, I'm sorry, but that is due to the exhibition case back that you see here. You have your standard 200 meters of water resistance. It is a mineral crystal. I do not believe there's any anti-reflective coating on this. And this is powered by the NH35 movement from Seiko. So it's a 24 joule movement, 21,600 vibrations per hour, or 3 hertz movement, and it is minus 20 to 40 to plus 40 seconds per day. It does have hacking and hand winding on this, but you'll notice there is no date on here. And the NH35 movement that's inside has a date feature. So essentially this watch has what they call a ghost date. You do have a signed crown, which you can kind of make out right there. And you do have a 120 click bezel with an aluminum insert and a lume pip at the 12 o'clock. Now this case is brushed stainless steel, and it is done in a horizontal fashion here that you can kind of see right there in the light. But the one thing that you'll notice here, you do have polished edges along the edge of the case itself. The other thing that sticks out very much is just the uncanny resemblance this watch has to the Rolex Submariner from 1953. It is just really uncanny. The lugs do taper down at the ends, which is really nice. It helps it to hug the wrist a little bit better. And it does sit a little bit high on the wrist, but then again, that is due to the fact that you do have the exhibition case back. So that takes up some room there. Speaking of, let's go ahead and take a look at the exhibition case back here. That is really nice looking. The case back itself is a polished stainless steel, and it is stamped, or not stamped, but it is etched in with some information about the watch. You see it's got the water resistance, it has the reference number, tells you that it is stainless steel, tells you it is an NH35. You can also see, obviously, the NH35 movement in here. Now, one thing that you can't see too well, let's see if I can get a better picture here. You'll see where it says TMI. TMI is a wholly owned subsidiary of Seiko. So this is essentially, I'm sorry about the focus there. This is essentially a Seiko movement. Now, I do really like this custom yellow rotor on here. That is really nice. And on the rotor itself, you will see that it is signed with the Invicta name and some other information about it. Very nice. I have heard that some people did not, they got this watch, but they did not get a yellow rotor, which I thought was a little bit on the odd side. So yeah, that's really kind of sad. The yellow rotor is really kind of a nice touch, and it nod, of course, to their roots. You know, it's the yellow is pretty much their color. There is really no other decoration on the movement other than that yellow, so that's not really too much there. Moving back towards the dial, you'll see that the crown itself is unguarded, which is reminiscent of the Rolex 1953. And the crown itself is really easy to grip and use. It is also a screw down crown, as you can see here, and it pops out. So remember, this is a ghost date. So position, you just pull it all the way out and you can set the time. It'll stop the second hand and you can push it all the way back in. And then there you go. You can wind it back down. Looking more closely, you can see that the crown is signed with, it looks like it is a Swiss cross that it is signed with. And again, that'll bring us up to the top now, and you'll see that we do have a 120 click bezel. There is really no back play at all in this watch at all. As you can see, I'm turning it. It's not going anywhere. So here, listen to let's see if you can hear the clicking. It's really nice and super tight and right on the money. So very good there. The other thing that you will notice here too is the decoration of the watch. There's not a whole lot of decoration, which is really nice. It does not take away from the actual watch itself. So you have the Invicta signature up at the top, just below the 12 o'clock, right above the pinion, and below you have 1953 and automatic just above the 6 o'clock marker. You will see that it has the elongated triangle at the 12, and then you have these kind of thinner rectangles at the 3, 6, and 9 position, and the rest of the indices are in are circular fashion. And you can see here that you have the indice track marked right there with the individual minutes itself. Now, the hands are pencil hands, and they are gold and lume filled. And you have the second hand, which is just a gold lollipop hand. It does not have any lume in it at all. So when you turn this thing over, let me go ahead and close that up. You turn this thing over, you see you have an oyster style bracelet here, which is really nice. Now this, for what you're getting, this is using a pin system. So you do have some adjustable links in it, which is really nice. And that comes down here to the actual clasp itself. So this clasp itself is a stamped clasp. So it's really not the best. It does the job and it does it well. It does have a security fold over, and you can see here you've got about 4 levels of micro adjust, and then another one here for the clasp itself. The clasp closes pretty securely, and it does flip over and hold it down pretty well. It is stamped with the Invicta logo and the Invicta name, of course. It does what it should, but it does feel a little bit cheap, and I think they probably should have picked that one up and maybe put a better clasp on it. Finally, we have the lume on the watch. Now, the lume on the watch is a trinite or some type of a superluminova. On their website, they call it trinite. And it does have a little bit of a patina look to it, which kind of adds to that vintage look. The lume on this watch is good for a watch at this price. And here you can see for yourself what it looks like at the start of a 30-minute test and after a 30-minute test. Okay, so what are my thoughts on the Invicta Pro Model 31290? Well, overall, I think this is a really good watch for under $150. I think it ticks a lot of boxes that people are going to be looking for if they want a Rolex Submariner Homage from 1953. Now, I do think there are some spots that could have been improved and some spots that I thought really shined. So let me start with the things I thought needed some improvement. So first of all, the clasp. I really felt the clasp fell very short here. I think they should have probably used maybe a nicer milled clasp and maybe put etching on the top of the clasp to make it just elevate more and look better overall. The other thing I didn't necessarily like was there were no drilled lugs. So changing out watch straps is going to be a little more difficult. Not impossible, but just a little more difficult. And the last thing that I didn't necessarily like at all was the use of the NH35 movement. Now, if they really wanted a true no date, they could have gone with the NH38, which doesn't have a date complication. I don't know. Perhaps it had something to do with cost, which is why they went with the NH35. It's most likely a lot more plentiful and a lot more available. Anyway, what were some of the things I did like about this watch? Well, I really did like the way the bezel worked. It was just very crisp and deliberate. Everything about that bezel felt really, really good. Some of the other things that I really liked. It does have a lug width of 20 millimeters. So your options for changing out those straps are so much wider and you can pick from so many different ones. And lastly, the one thing that I did like is that it stayed true to the actual Rolex Submariner from 1953. I really like the way it was executed overall. Well, there you go. Now you have my thoughts on the Invicta Pro Diver model 31290. I'd love to hear what you think, so why don't you leave a comment below and let me know what your thoughts are. And while you're there, why don't you leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more content just like this. And before I go, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Strap Habit for providing the straps that you saw in this video today. If you like any of these straps or you want to check out some other options that they have, click on the link below and it'll take you right to his website. Also, if you're looking for maybe some other videos that might cover things like Casios, why don't you check a couple of these out right here? These are some reviews I did very recently. Thank you so much for watching and always know how much I appreciate your support.